Rome ruled for so long that the guy who started it and the guy who ended it would have needed an interpreter to understand each other's language, religion, and capital city. One empire, one title, 1,453 years. Here is how emperor went from a brand new job description to a title some guy was still dying for in a city under siege in the year 1453. Chapter 1. Foundational Rome used to be a republic. No kings, no emperors, just senators yelling at each other. Then a guy named Julius Caesar got a little too popular, a little too powerful, and a lot too dead. He was stabbed by the same senators who were worried he would become a king. So Caesar's adopted son Octavian spent the next 15 years hunting down Caesar's killers and fighting off rivals. By the time the dust settled, Octavian was the last man standing. And the Senate, suddenly very interested in keeping their heads attached to their bodies, gave him a new name, Augustus. Hey Senate, I just want to say I have no interest in being a king. We totally believe you. Here, have unlimited military command, control of the treasury, and the title First Citizen. Wow, you really should not have. No, seriously, you should not have. Augustus did not call himself emperor. He called himself first among equals, which is a very humble way of saying I run everything now. He fixed the borders, started a 200-year stretch of relative peace, and set up a system where power passed down through his family. That last part was about to become a problem. Augustus passed the job to his stepson Tiberius, who ran the empire competently but spent his later years brooding on an island, letting other people make decisions for him. Then came Caligula, who started off fine and ended up, depending on which historian you believe, either genuinely unhinged or just extremely bad at public relations. Either way, his own guards killed him. Next was Claudius, who nobody expected to become emperor. He stuttered, he limped, and his own family treated him like a joke. Turns out being underestimated was the safest place to be in this family. Claudius conquered Britain and ran the empire reasonably well. Then he ate dinner with his wife, and his wife's son became emperor. His name was Nero. Nero started out young, a teenager handed the most powerful job on earth. He liked music, theatre, and being told he was talented at both. He did not like being told no. He had his mother killed. He had his wife killed. And in the year 64, a massive fire tore through Rome, while, according to legend, Nero played music and watched. He blamed the fire on a small religious group called the Christians and had them executed in horrific public displays. The Senate, the army, and basically everyone with any power had seen enough. They turned on him, and with nowhere left to run, Nero ended his own life. And with him, the entire bloodline of Augustus was gone. Rome had just lost the only family it had ever known as the emperors. Whoever came next would have to build legitimacy from absolutely nothing in a city that had just watched its first dynasty burn itself out. Chapter 2. Year of 4 Emperors. With no Augustus bloodline left, the obvious question was who gets to be emperor now? And the Roman Empire's answer was, basically, whoever had the biggest army. In a single year, 69 AD, 4 different men became emperor. Galba took the throne and was almost immediately murdered by his own guards. Otho took over next and lasted about 3 months before losing a battle and taking his own life. Then Vitellius grabbed the throne, lasted a few more months, and was dragged through the streets of Rome and killed by an angry mob. 3 emperors down in 12 months. Rome needed someone boring. Someone stable. Someone who wasn't going to get murdered by lunch. Hey general, the empire is a mess. Nobody trusts anyone, and we've already buried 3 emperors this year. Got any ideas? Yeah, stop letting unstable guys be emperor. Genius. Who do you suggest? Me. Enter Vespasian, a career military commander with none of the chaotic baggage of the previous 3. He restored order, stabilized the treasury, and started construction on a massive new arena in the middle of Rome, the Colosseum. He never finished it. His son Titus did, opening the Colosseum with 100 days of games. Titus also handled a slightly bigger crisis, a volcano called Vesuvius that buried the city of Pompeii in ash while he was emperor. He didn't cause it, but he had to clean it up, and he died young, just 2 years into the job. That left his brother Domitian, who ruled with an iron fist, declared himself a literal god while still alive, and grew so paranoid about assassination plots that he had mirrors installed in his palace, so he could see who was behind him at all times. The mirrors didn't save him. His own staff killed him anyway. The Flavian family was done. But unlike the chaos after Nero, Rome had learned something important this time. Stability mattered more than bloodline. The next stretch of emperors would prove that lesson better than anyone could have guessed. Chapter 3: 5 Good Emperors. After Domitian, the Senate tried something new. Instead of handing power to a son, each emperor would handpick the most capable person to take over next. No family drama, no guessing games. Just pick the best guy for the job. It worked, spectacularly. First came Nerva, a short, safe transition pick. Then Trajan, a general who took the empire to its absolute largest size in history, conquering Dacia and pushing all the way to the Persian Gulf. At its peak under Trajan, Rome controlled roughly 2 million square miles of land and an estimated 60 million people. For comparison, almost nobody in Rome had ever seen a map that showed the whole thing at once. Trajan, you've basically conquered everything worth conquering. What's left? Mesopotamia. Sir, that's currently controlled by Parthia, one of the most powerful empires on Earth. Even better, Trajan died before he could hold on to those eastern conquests, and his successor, Hadrian, made an unusual choice for a Roman emperor. He pulled back. He gave up some of the hardest to defend territory and focused on securing what Rome already had. In Britain, he ordered the construction of a massive wall stretching coast to coast to keep Roman territory separate from the unconquered tribes to the north. That wall is still standing today, and it still has his name on it. After Hadrian came Antoninus Pius, whose reign was so calm and uneventful that historians genuinely struggle to find drama to write about. Some considered this the high point of the entire empire, when boring was actually the goal. Then came Marcus Aurelius, a man who spent his nights writing personal philosophy notes about how to be a better, calmer, more disciplined person. Those notes somehow survived and are still read today as a book called Meditations. By day, he spent most of his reign fighting wars on the empire's borders and dealing with a plague that may have killed millions. Marcus Aurelius wanted to keep the system of picking the best successor going. Instead, he handed the empire to his actual son. That son's name was Commodus. Chapter 4: Crisis Era, 180 to 284. Commodus did not inherit his father's philosophy books. He inherited his father's gladiator's enthusiasm, minus the part where you're supposed to stay in the audience. He fought in the arena himself, rigged obviously, and renamed Rome after himself for a while, just to make sure everyone knew whose empire this was. Hey Commodus, the Senate would like to discuss the state of the empire. Can't right now. I'm fighting a crippled gladiator in front of 50,000 people. We could really use some actual governing. Tell them I'll get to it after my victory lap. Commodus was eventually strangled in his bath by a wrestler hired specifically for that purpose, and Rome entered a stretch historians now bluntly call the crisis of the 3rd century. For about 50 years, emperors came and went at a brutal pace, more than 20 of them in roughly 50 years, most killed by their own soldiers, rival generals, or each other. The empire nearly split into 3 separate pieces. Inflation spiraled out of control. Plague returned. Borders were attacked from multiple directions at once. Rome needed another Vespasian, someone boring, stable, and willing to fix the actual machinery of government instead of just wearing the crown. It got something even more drastic. Diocletian looked at the empire, sprawling, broke, and impossible for one man to defend, and made a decision nobody had tried before: split the job. He divided the empire into 4 regions, each with its own ruler, a system called the Tetrarchy. He reformed the currency, reorganized the army, and set fixed prices on goods to fight inflation. He also launched one of the largest persecutions of Christians in Roman history, trying to stamp out a religion that, by this point, had quietly spread through every level of Roman society, including the army and the palace itself. Diocletian did something almost no Roman emperor ever did. He retired. Voluntarily. He went to grow cabbages. The 4-way power-sharing system he left behind didn't survive his retirement party. Within a few years, the 4 rulers were fighting each other for sole control, and one of them was about to change Rome's religion, capital, and direction forever. Chapter 5. Late Empire and Christian Turn, 284 to 476. Out of the chaos of Diocletian's 4-way split came a young commander named Constantine, the son of one of the 4 rulers. He fought his way through rivals, and right before one decisive battle, he claimed to have seen a vision in the sky, a cross of light, which he believed promised him victory. He won the battle, he believed the vision, and the religion that Diocletian had just tried to wipe out became the emperor's personal religion of choice. In 313, Constantine legalized Christianity across the empire. No more persecutions, no more arenas full of martyrs, just an emperor who had switched sides entirely. Constantine, you do realize your predecessor spent years trying to destroy this religion? Yes. And now, I'd like to build it a few churches. Several churches. Actually, let's also build an entirely new capital city. That new capital was built on the site of an old Greek city called Byzantium, on the edge of 2 continents, easily defended on 3 sides by water. Constantine renamed it after himself, Constantinople. It would remain the capital of Roman power for over 1,000 years after Rome itself had stopped being the center of anything. After Constantine, the empire kept splitting and reuniting between various sons and rivals, until Theodosius I briefly held it all together one final time. In 380, he made Christianity not just legal, but the official state religion of Rome, meaning the empire that had once fed Christians to lions was now requiring everyone to be one. Theodosius was the last man to rule a fully unified Roman Empire. When he died in 395, he split it between his 2 sons. One got the west, one got the east, and it never came back together again. The western half did not have long left. Invasions, economic collapse, and a revolving door of weak emperors propped up by foreign generals wore it down piece by piece. In 476, a Germanic general named Odoacer removed the last Western emperor, a teenager with the almost comically grand name Romulus Augustulus, whose name means Little Augustus, and did not even bother replacing him with anyone. The Western Roman Empire, the one that started with Augustus 500 years earlier, was over, but the title of Roman Emperor was not dead. It had just moved address to that city Constantine built on the edge of 2 continents. Chapter 6. Byzantine Continuation, 476 to 1453. While the West collapsed, the eastern half of the empire, what historians now call the Byzantine Empire, but which its own people simply called Rome, kept going. About 50 years after the West fell, an emperor named Justinian decided it was time to take some of it back. Justinian sent his armies to reclaim Italy, North Africa, and parts of Spain, briefly putting much of the old Roman map back under one ruler again. At home, he ordered scholars to take centuries of messy, contradictory Roman law and organize it into one clear legal code, a code so well built that parts of it still influence legal systems today. He also rebuilt a massive church in Constantinople after the old one burned down in a riot, the Hagia Sophia, a building so enormous that for nearly 1,000 years it was the largest cathedral on earth. Justinian, the reconquests were expensive, the legal code took years, and now you want a giant cathedral too. Solomon, I have outdone thee. Sir, that is not really an answer to the budget question. The reconquests did not last. Most of that western territory slipped away again within a few decades of Justinian's death. But the Eastern Empire kept adapting. A couple generations later, Heraclius inherited an empire under brutal pressure from Persia, which had captured huge stretches of territory, including Jerusalem. Heraclius reorganized the military, personally led campaigns deep into Persian territory, and clawed back everything that had been lost. It was one of the great comeback stories in Roman history, and it was almost immediately overshadowed. Just a few years after Heraclius beat Persia, a brand new force out of Arabia, fueled by a brand new religion, came charging out of the desert and took huge portions of both the Roman and Persian empires before either side could recover. The empire shrank, and it shrank again. For centuries, Byzantine emperors fought a long, grinding battle just to hold on to what was left, occasionally clawing back territory and occasionally losing it again. Then, around the year 1000, one emperor pushed the empire to its last great peak. Basil II spent decades at war, most famously crushing the Bulgarian Empire so thoroughly that he reportedly earned the nickname Bulgar Slayer. Under his reign, Byzantine territory and influence reached heights it had not seen in centuries. He died with the treasury full and the borders secure. He also died without an obvious heir lined up, and almost immediately the empire started sliding again. Internal power struggles, a catastrophic military defeat against the Seljuk Turks, and the rise of new rivals chipped away at Byzantine land for the next 400 years. By the 1400s, the once mighty Eastern Roman Empire had shrunk to little more than the city of Constantinople itself and a few scattered territories. Outside the walls of that city stood the Ottoman Empire, young, ambitious, and very interested in finally finishing what centuries of armies had failed to do. Inside those walls was a man named Constantine XI, the same first name as the emperor who built the city 1100 years earlier, now facing the job of trying to save it one final time. Constantine, the Ottomans have surrounded the city with the largest cannons anyone's ever built. What's the plan? We hold the walls. With what army? Everyone we have left. How many is that? Fewer than we'd like. In May of 1453, after weeks of bombardment, the walls that had protected Constantinople for over 1,000 years were finally breached. Constantine XI took off the symbols that marked him as emperor, picked up a sword like an ordinary soldier, and disappeared into the final fighting at the gates. His body was never confirmed found. The city fell. The title that started with Augustus in 27 BC, first citizen, then emperor, then God's chosen ruler in the East, finally ended after 1,453 years. In the same kind of chaos it had survived 100 times before, except this time there was no comeback.